time in the winter, just like December, January, they never been in the summer, never.
I go in my days every summer and I get a cabana and I live at that pool.
I
was
never
there
been in the
last
pool in Vegas
August.
because it was always cold
I
and
didn't feel
rainy.
badly. It was hot, but it wasn't humid.
In the
I
summer,
didn't feel bad
I
about
go
it.
every time in the winter. I don't know how it's happened. Every time I go, it's like December, like really cold, rainy.
Summer pool party.
March, April is the best time. April.
That's amazing. It's good. It's cool. Yeah, it's fun. It gets hot. It gets really hot. But yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
You better check with him. I guarantee you he's running late.
Doesn't rise.
Huh?
It doesn't rise.
Oh, you need a new pen?
Yeah.
There's some up here, I think.
Yeah.
Oh. We also need a new pen for the signage.
For the sign-in sheet?
Yeah.
So it's not working?
Hi.
Good morning. How you doing?
Good morning, good morning.
Yeah, so no one called me this weekend. You guys that call me and text me when I'm in Vegas, like the only time I miss.
Just gonna call you.
Hit the lot of the scholars.
Yeah, I know, right?
I'm not, you guys will never hear from me again.
Literally, I just start teaching all the classes. Everyone just like,
I'll be like, yeah, there's a YouTube channel for that.
that's actually hilarious.
No, you'll still get one email from me. It will be an invitation to party at my penthouse, my permanent penthouse at
Literally.
the Cosmopolitan.
Literally.
I'll be like, can someone bring my puppies?
That's so funny.
All right. Okay. So today we're going to talk about buyer consults. Okay. So, do you think buyers have a realistic idea of what they're going to get for their budget?
No,
Do you think that they have a realistic idea of what their budget actually is?
no.
If they go for food, yes. No.
Yeah. So most of them don't, but this is during your buyer consult. This is where you discuss things like that if they haven't, so that you are actually showing them property that, works for them, that they can actually, purchase. So most buyer consultations actually take place pretty informally. They're not usually formal sit downs. I've only had a couple in my career. The reason for this is because first-time buyers are typically the ones that want buyer consults, and first-time buyers often sort of fall into your lap. They select an agent if they're not already attached to one, sort of accidentally. This is why another agent's open house is a really good place to pick up an unrepresented buyer. A lot of them start looking around before they're prepared, and a lot of times they'll form a relationship with an agent sort of accidentally in meeting if they're not set up or referred by a friend. So a lot of times my buyer consultations are on the phone. Once this class is over, you should start working on putting a buyer consultation together in the case that you don't already have one. Because until you are super, super familiar with all of the questions that you need to work into a very natural feeling conversation, you will need to refer to your buyer consult so that you get all the information that you need to get so that you can actually start working for a buyer, and be prepared to do so and get all of the information you need for accurate search results.
How do you create it? KW?
I use the KW command template for buyer consult, but I trash like 80% of it. Yeah. And I had to recreate pages. So do you think that most buyers know what it is that they want?
No.
No. Most of the time they don't.
I mean, they may know, but they don't know if they can get it.
Yeah. But no matter what a buyer says, I keep the words no, I keep the words not possible, doesn't exist, out of your price point, out of your budget. I keep that out of the buyer consult. It is not a time for me to say no. I never tell them no. I never tell them they can't have what they want. If it is too ridiculous, I will show them, but I cannot be the no person. I lost a buyer once. That was a real buyer. And it's because I told them no too soon. And this is after I started I had worked with them for a while. You have to show people things. You can't discourage them. Okay. Most buyers do not end up buying what they tell you they want. And it is our job to gently direct them towards what they want in an area or meeting criteria that will meet the most important needs in an area they can afford, in a structure that's going to work for them and whoever's going to be living with them. All right. So if I have someone who calls me up and it's like, yeah, I want a home in the Beverly Hills Flats with a yard and a pool for $5 million. That's not going to happen, is it? But I don't tell them that. I say, okay, you know what? I'll pull a search up for you. But what I try to do, and we'll talk more about how the buyer consult takes place, is I need to get to the motivation of the buyer. Okay. So your entire job as the buyer's agent is to get to their motivations, what their needs are and what their motivations are. Okay. Because that's going to ultimately help you to, or not help you, it's going to help you, it will successfully bring you to a place where you get them to where they need to be, if they're going to get there. Okay. So I really need to focus on the personal relationship with the buyer. Okay. But I also need to convey my care, my professionalism, my attention to detail. I'd like to tell them what to expect. Because here's the thing, they're not my client yet. Right. And a lot of buyers change their mind. Buyers more often change their mind than sellers. Right? A seller generally has a need to sell, a real reason that they're going to sell. Not always, but a lot of times. Whereas a buyer doesn't necessarily have to purchase, right? And it can be an overwhelming and scary thing for a buyer. So what are the things that drive a buyer's needs and wants? What are going to be king in what they end up with, or where your search takes you? Budget, but we don't know that yet going into a buyer consult. Where do they need to be? Where do they need to be every day? What does work look like for them? What does work look like for their partner or their spouse? Do they have children? Do those children need to go to a certain school? Do they need to purchase within a school district? Are they at a certain school that they're going to stay in? So they need to stay within a certain area. Are they going to go to private school, but they want to be a certain driving distance, right? Do they have religious observance where they need to be a certain amount of distance away from whatever center of worship that is? Are they really tied into a community that they want to stay walking distance to? Are they Jewish? Are they observing on Saturday where they need to be walking distance from family and friends and the temple, right? And the Jewish community, that Saturday walk is really, really important, right? Let's see. Who's going to live there, right? Do they have an elderly parent? Do they need single level? If they have children or animals, do they need to have a yard? How old are their kids, right? What's the driving motivation? Why do they want to buy? Where do they live now? Where are they coming from? Okay, what are their goals as far as, what buying a place is going to entail? Does that mean it's going to make their life more convenient? Or is it more of an investment purchase? Is this for rental? Is this for investment? Is this for now? Like I'm working with a buyer right now who wants a vacation home, but something that can be easily rented, but also something that can transition because he's a single man who likes being married and have children, that can transition into a family home. So we're looking in Redondo Beach, my hometown, mostly because his budget will only afford him what he wants there. For what he wants. His criteria was, I want walking distance. So there's an area called Riviera Village with all the cute little shops and restaurants in South Redondo Beach. That whole area has great schools all the way across. He wanted to be close to the beach, but he wanted to be in a quiet neighborhood. He wanted to stay in the 2 to 2.7 range. but he wanted a single family that wasn't on top of other single families with a big yard. That cuts out Hermosa Beach and Manhattan Beach. And he's under the false impression that the city of El Segundo stinks. It doesn't, but that's fine with me because he probably can't afford what he wants in El Segundo anyhow. So South Redondo it is, and I'm really set on that. That was very easy for me to determine, and I was a little bit more direct with him. I think he's an engineer and he's a referral client and he's not a first-time buyer. So I was a little bit like more direct with him, but if this was a first-time buyer, you know, buying for primary residence, I'm not gonna tell him no about any of those areas. I'm going to say, great, I'll throw up a search result for everything that's there. I'll pull everything that's there and then I'll call you, you know, later to discuss what's a good time for you. Who are the decision makers, right? Right? Maybe there's a parent that is contributing to a down payment that, you know, if you don't ask about those things, you don't know. Do they currently own? Well, do they need to sell to buy? If they don't, would they prefer to buy before they sell? If they prefer to sell or they need to sell before they buy, will they need a lease back or are they going to go into temporary housing? Maybe they're buying up, you know, condo to single family. Maybe rental income from that condo is going to be something that they need in order to figure out how much they're going to be able to, you know, afford for their mortgage. So maybe they need comps for that rental value.
Some people are not specific on how much money they want to put down or how much money they have to buy the property. So find your property. Don't worry about the money. I mean, as long as it's a good area. I mean,
I'll get to that.
you-
I know who you're talking about, John. Your entire existence is like that. They want a deal. So does everybody.
Boy, you're smart. You're smart.
Even more dramatic. I've had many of those clients, John, and I'm not shopping it to them. I'm shopping it to my investor clients so they can fix up, flip it, and sell it with me. So I have two deals, not one. Yeah, I'm not working with my fair weathered friends that still want to write an offer with disgusting terms and a bad price when I find them a deal. No, I'm going to work with my investor clients who know a deal when they see it, are all cash, listen to me, and will flip it with me. Yeah. Or I'm going to try to buy it myself if I find that good deal. What else? Well, they may not want to be close to busy streets or roads. They may love a certain area for recreation. They may be, you know, like they may be a member of a country club or a beach club or something they want to stay close to. Perhaps their, you know, kids or parents live in Brentwood or Westwood. So we need to find out what their life is like. What do they do? Who do they want to be close to, right? I even had some clients who, you know, they have a bunch of property and we've been looking for their upgrade single family residence for a while, but they had a Malibu house and they had a Studio City house. They told me anywhere in the hills as long as it's a great house. They ended up buying in the flats, not the hills. And anytime, like one of them really liked Bel Air, right? Anytime I showed them Bel Air, they're like, oh yeah, it's too close to our Malibu house. So they told me one thing, but their response to what I showed them was available on the market was always consistently, that's too close to the Malibu house. So I realized I need to stay like BHPO in it. So it's about listening, and we're talking about buyer consult now, the initial consultation. What they want and what they need is going to morph over time, and it's going to be your job to gently figure that out with them and gently make suggestions, even if they're not open. Like someone who can't really afford what they want this side of the hill, you know what? Over time, they may become more willing and open to the valley after the search goes on and they see that they're not happy with what is in their price range over time. And so you'll just gently send suggestions to them. I always acknowledge the shortcomings in anything I send to a client, okay, as well as the strong points. So this would meet 7 out of 8 of your top, you know, your must-have criteria. But it's got this great feature about it. So I thought you might be willing to look at it instead. Obviously, these are not my first attempts. This is as my search goes on with the buyers. And you'll feel them, you'll feel it as they start to bend and start to come to these realizations themselves. But like I said, I am not the no person. I am not forcing something they didn't ask for down their throats. I am working with them as they become more sophisticated about market conditions and pricing. Okay. Oh, my favorite. I'll have the buyers who, I set up searches with them and they're like, this one didn't come up in your search criteria. And I'm like, because you told me no this. Are you now, should we open the search to this? Great, they did my job for me. I don't have to like gently, carefully ask them if we can now add the city I told them we should be looking at from the get-go. Because that's really the only place I can see them getting everything they want where they can afford it. Or, the Zillow, why didn't you send me this one? Oh, well, that's an uninhabitable home that's only a cash purchase, or it's a probate deal, or that's for 50% of the ownership. That's not for the whole thing. Oh, I didn't see that anywhere on the listing. That's because it's an agent remarks and only agents can see it. But rest assured, I am sending you everything and even stuff beyond what meets our criteria. Sometimes there just are no search results. So this guy in Redondo I'm looking for 2 homes in the entire city that has met his criteria. One of them had like 16 offers and went way above his price range. The other one is overpriced a little bit and it's really dirty and very lived in. It's all cosmetic work. And I'm like, well, you said you were okay with the fixer. I wouldn't pick this home for these reasons for you, based on what you told me, but it does meet your basic criteria and it's literally the only one in the entire city. But we can wait. Just a second here. All right. So why? What's important to you? But now let's talk about practical things. We've already talked about the one level in relation to who's going to own the home. So I told you that the relationship when you're meeting with a buyer is first and foremost, and working these questions in a natural way, not going through a checklist like a robot, is going to be really important. So once you create a buyer consultation, you're going to want to practice with other agents. You're going to want to practice with your friends, your significant others, your family. You want to practice with that mean friend who will tell you exactly how it is too. That's probably going to be your most important practice, is the person who doesn't hold back and will tell you where you need to improve. You don't want people who tell you how great you are. You want people around who will tell you where to improve, right? That you can take that constructive criticism from. Because if you don't feel comfortable with the material and you don't have a buyer consultation physically next to you when you do these kind of impromptu buyer consultations, sometimes you're going to miss things and it's not going to flow the way it should, and your inexperience will show. And a nervous, inexperienced buyer is going to pick up on that inexperience you have and that nervousness you have. That is not a good mix. It's about being not sympathetic. It's huh?
And other,
I'm talking about with the buyer. Empathetic. It's about being empathetic. It's about listening. It's about hearing your client's needs and not over asserting your will and your thoughts, right? It's about educating them, making them feel empowered, making them feel confident. If you don't know what you're talking about, you're not going to make them feel confident. Okay. I also like to keep it no pressure, no stress, right? So buyer consultation and working with me is completely free of charge, right? People ask me about buyer representation agreement exclusive. They altered it at the first of the year to where it can be canceled unilaterally by a buyer. So I'd be more comfortable using it now. But I myself am at a point in my career where I wouldn't work with a client I didn't trust. Most of my clients are referral or repeat clients anyways. But definitely in the beginning of my career, there were some clients I worked with, maybe like John's clients, who would work with anyone as long as they brought them the right deal, right? I might use a buyer representation exclusive in that instance. But I've even had like those first time buyers that did a lot of research. In my formal buyer consultation, they were like, "We don't want to sign a BRE," and they were so shocked. And I was like, "No, I mean, it only binds you to working with me. It doesn't bind me to working with you. And if you don't feel like I'm doing a good job for you, you're not going to buy with me anyways. And I'm confident in the work that I do. You know, the only thing I could foresee happening is perhaps we have really different communication styles or something, and that doesn't mix well. But, you know, if that's the case, I would encourage you and want you to work with another agent. This is one of the most important things that you ever do, which I understand. I never forget, no matter how many times I do this. And I want you to do it with someone you feel confident and happy with, right? So there is buyer representation agreement, and you know, there are certain instances in which you may want to use it. There are some people, as common practice, do it in every single buyer transaction, but I do want to warn you, it can scare buyers away from it, right? So if you want to make it standard practice, it could also hurt you with buyers you could actually close transactions with. So I think that's a personal choice for every agent to make for themselves. Okay. I will pull up a buyer representation agreement for you just so you can take a look at it. There are endless ways to fill it out. Endless ways to fill it out. So we'll read a little bit of it, but I'm not going to go over it because there's no one way to do it. And it's pretty straightforward and it's easy to read. I'm confident that anyone actually reading it, looking at it, taking the time will be able to fill it out on their own.
So in which case you do sign the.
I've never done one. But that doesn't mean it doesn't have value. And it doesn't mean it won't work for you. I just want you to know the two sides of it. I want you to know my platform of why. You know, there are some agents, like I said, it's standard practice for them and they use it every time. But I can guarantee you there are some buyers that you will miss out on if you make it common practice. You know, the people who are a little more skittish. And those people generally take more time to buy, but not always. All right, so now I start talking about practical things. Well, and I'll work in what they told me. So I'm mirroring them. I'm making sure that this buyer knows I've been listening to what they've been saying, right? So it's you, your husband, your two children, you anticipate living there for a long time. I hear that you are, you know, you'd like extra space because maybe you'd like to move your husband's mother in with you in the next couple of years. You know, they told me they want single level or whatever. So how many bedrooms do you prefer? So you'll need one for the mother-in-law, two for the children, one for yourselves. Are you looking for an office, a guest room, more than one? Does that not matter? Right? Oh, one of your kids is going to college soon. You know, you can do with the one extra room. So I'm trying to find out bedroom, bathroom count, but I'm doing it by working in, hey buyer, I listened to what you said. Here, and also, they may not have thought about it, and I'm managing expectations. You know, like I have someone who comes from Tennessee and is like, yeah, I want 8 bedrooms and a minimum of 1,200 square foot lot, and I don't need a big house, you know, just maybe like 4,000 square feet. And I'm like, all right, Miss Tennessee. Well, no, not go back to Tennessee. What's your budget? What's your budget? Because land value here is so high that it is very rare that we have homes that large at all. That might be one of the times where I curtail an expectation when it doesn't exist really anywhere in LA that's not, you know, if this person's like, oh yeah, I've got a $15 million budget, no problem. $10 million budget, no problem. Okay, I've got that. Or maybe they're like, I need to be in Santa Monica. Good luck. Good at Palisades, right? Yeah, I've got a $2 million budget. All right, we need to look at the Deep Valley. Probably not even then. Right, so I'm managing expectation. A lot of people, particularly women, this is a scientific fact, I'm not being sexist, they're not as gifted spatially. So when you ask them, and what I mean by that is like actual measurements. So when you ask them what kind of minimum square footage they want, they have no idea, right? So it's really important for you to familiarize yourself with, sort of common square footages in the LA area, right? So a 2-bedroom condo is generally from about 900 square feet to 1,100. Below would be considered smaller, above would be considered larger for a 2-bedroom. 3-bedroom, we're gonna look 13 to 15, okay? Or a single family, you could probably add 200 square feet to each of those, right? But if you ask someone a question like that, they might give you criteria that is not realistic, thank you, or doesn't actually meet their needs at all. So it's really important that you provide suggestions, right? You're the expert, you're the professional, and they might not know how much experience or lack of experience you have, but they probably have less experience than you do, right? That's almost a guarantee. So you need to throw out those suggestions. We already talked about, do they need that yard? Do they need or want a pool, right? If they're looking in the valley, my guess is they're gonna want a pool, especially if they have kids and stuff. If they're buying for yard and all that, or space to put one in. Oh, that's so good. That doesn't happen often. What else? What else might be important to someone, guys? Parking. Parking might be important to someone. Maybe they're a car enthusiast, or they've got 3 kids, they work, they need direct access from a garage. They're in their high heels with their screaming child, their briefcase, their purse, and a bag of groceries, right? They're looking at a condo, in-unit laundry might be really important to them. Okay. People's pets are important to them. Security. When we get into higher end, privacy. Maybe they work from home. Maybe they both work from home, and so more space, or the ability, like a large enough lot to put an ADU or something with an ADU is really important to them. Yeah. Maybe quiet is important to them, right? What is important to a buyer is up to the buyer. And it is your job to find out whether it's a common thing or it's an uncommon thing. Maybe they really, really want a view. With a budget, that's tough to do. Not always. It's also your job to know things. You're like, I need to be a quick drive from the beach because I'm an avid boater and I'm moving to LA and I plan on having a boat in the Marina Harbor. All right, we all know that there is no quick drive to the Marina Harbor unless you literally live in Marina Del Rey. Maybe Venice. What else is important, guys, for a buyer? Come on, what would be important for you if you were looking for your house? Think about it that way. Put yourself in buyer shoes.
Central AC.
Yeah. But I think that's in most homes here now. Maybe.
Valley.
Oh, I think that they have, like, I don't know if I've ever seen a place without central AC. HOA dues might be an important factor. If they're looking at a condo. A gym. Amenities, yeah. Amenities, yeah. But first and foremost, it's always going to be location, right? We talk about NCMA, we talk about that in buyer consult, location. So what other things do you need to ask? Well, you need to ask practical things like, hey, can I have your email address, telephone number of all the decision makers if you're not talking to all of them at once? Okay. What is your availability like to view homes? Well, there's all of this negative media. The market where we're at is not actually slowing down, is not actually slow. Prices are not going down. It's holding steady. And there is less inventory. Less sellers are selling. So anything that is priced well and is nice, I'm still seeing multiple offers on. Yeah. So it is not, it's about gently, don't even ask about their take on market conditions. Try to get out in front of that stuff by letting people know what the real conditions are, so that they take your information as more valid. It's not in response to a question that they might be more concerned you're being defensive of. And dispel their misinformation before it comes to the forefront of anything. Why do you think there'd be less inventory, guys? Why is there less
Right now,
inventory?
because they're afraid to sell, because if they move, they will, like, the interest rate is high
Yeah,
for them. and the
exactly.
tax will
I
go
refi
higher.
to 2.25% interest. Why on earth would I move and have an interest rate of 6 or 7%? Why would I do that? I wouldn't, unless I need to. So sellers are not making, they can't make lateral moves. Because unless you fell asleep under a rock, you refied your mortgage during the pandemic.
I think at least 75% of current mortgages today are at least below 4%.
It's never been that way ever, ever. So yeah, we're seeing less inventory. So there's more competition for those homes, period. So just get in front of those. The next thing you want to talk about is, so you gave me a price range that you're comfortable with, but I wanted to find out if you've been pre-qualified by a mortgage professional. And the reason I ask you that is because the way a bank will qualify you for how much you can borrow may not make sense to any of us, depending upon your type of income. Or I use the example, like, or expenses, like if you're buying a condo, banks factor in HOA dues in a really weird way, where, if the HOA dues are high, you qualify for less, on your purchase price. You could actually qualify for more on a single family than a condo in most instances. Justin Jacobson, you know that I'm teaching class, so you should. Okay. So even if they say yes, I'm like, oh, so who did you talk to? I went into my bank. That's what a lot of first-time buyers do. Oh, well, I'm glad you've spoken to someone. I think, I would recommend, I would recommend that you speak to a mortgage broker or a couple. I have some fantastic referrals for you, because while you have an existing relationship with your bank, they can only shop their loan programs, and there's only a handful there. Whereas a mortgage broker has endless options, and they may very likely find you a better rate and a better mortgage, something that fits your needs better. And oftentimes, these people, this is their only job. They're not spoon-fed business by the bank. So they have to actually be better at what they do. Not saying that all are, but in order for them to have a successful business, they need referral business. They are not fed the business. And so they're generally going to be better at their job. Not only that, the bank cares about the bank and protecting their interest. Whereas the mortgage broker, their success is directly related to getting you a loan that you're happy with, and closing it. We can be completely honest with the mortgage broker, whereas with the loan officer, you may need to be careful about what you say, and careful about the information they receive during an escrow. Mortgage broker is going to be crafty, which may be very financially advantageous for a borrower. Creative has more license. Crafty's smart. Crafty's more like me. I'm not breaking the rules. I just know which ones are gray area and what I can get away with.
What you can bend.
Yeah, what I can bend and what I can't. Right? I'm super ethical, but if everyone's in agreement and it's not hurting anyone and it's not breaking any rules or violating any of the terms of my licensure or my relationships with the other people or my client, why not? Still have to do it in a way that's legit. Yeah, crafty like fox, quick and smart. All right, so let's talk about like the actual mechanics of a printed or digital formal buyer presentation. What goes, oh, sorry, let me finish up. So I really kind of push them there. A lot of buyers are, they have misinformation about what getting pre-qualified entails. So I try to spit this out before they can say no to me. They need to know that no credit check is required. They, at least in my instance, I am able to confidently tell them my mortgage broker will barely take new business. He is not going to call you and bother you if you don't want to work with him. If you decide you like someone else or change your mind about wanting to make a purchase, so you don't have to worry about that. There is no pressure. There is no stress. I have tons of very happy clients who have worked with these people. How many referrals to a mortgage broker do you need to give your client? Protect yourself from liability. Yeah, 3. 3. Good luck finding 3 good ones. Come on, smile. Errol's a good mortgage broker, I think. I haven't worked with him, but from what I gather, he knows what he's doing. But I always look at him and smile when I trash his profession. That's okay. Makes a good one stand out more. Our profession is trash too. Because there are a lot of shady agents out there who don't care and don't know, right? So they need to know, yeah, no credit check. They need to know it can be hassle-free. And you better, like, when you bring people into your business that you refer out to your clients, you coach them because they get their business from you. So if I were to give, I am a bad girl and I don't give out 3 referrals anymore. In fact, I tell buyers I won't even work with them unless they work with my preferred lender, unless they have a private banking relationship, because I don't have time to get involved in deals where we can't qualify for our loan, or I'm stressed out the entire time because I have someone misleading me or lying to me, or that actually just doesn't know what they're doing. I'm not doing that anymore. It's very stressful. But you should coach these people is, if my client is not, returning your calls and all of that, you can reach out to me, but I do not want you, hounding them. That's my business model is I'm not a hard chaser. I don't do that. If you don't see value in working with me, if you don't like my style, you don't like the people on my team or that I associate myself with, that's fine. I'm not the agent for you. Not everybody's going to be a fit, right? So if I focus on making sure I work with the people who are really in tune with the way I work, my close rate's going to be high. They're going to be happy. I'm going to meet more people through them like that. It's just going to be a happier experience for all parties involved. When I was newer in the industry, that was not the case. I worked with anyone, even when I'm like, oh my God, what horrible person, I want to murder them. I have a client I still refer to as Mr. Asshole. He used to call me, what's her name? That's why I started calling him, at least between you and I, Mr. Asshole. It's just like, oh, really? You can't remember my name. I don't think you'd like to very much. Why are you working? Oh, but I need money. Okay. Do this one more day. One more day. So coach these people. So if you're referring people, you want to make sure they're an extension of you, of your business model, that they're going to mesh with the clients that are attracted to you. If your client wants to work with you, there is something about the way you conduct yourself, generally speaking, that they're attracted to, right? All right. What else? I try to score an in-person meeting with the client as soon as possible. And even if nothing's coming up in search results, I try to set up an appointment and I try to make it easier. Like during open houses, if I haven't met them in person, I want to score in-person time with them. I think I do better in person, right? I think I just come across as really direct and a little rude over the phone. But when I'm tiny, blonde, and smiley in person, you can see that I'm joking. I'm very sarcastic. I do better. I really want the in-person, but all of us agents should be scoring that in-person as quickly as possible, because the more in-person time you spend with the buyer, the more bound they feel to you. Okay? You want them to be your buyer. As soon as you start showing homes to them, Not always, but more often than not, if that buyer buys, they're going to buy with you unless you fuck it up. Okay, if you cannot get them to a showing ever, you've got some problems. We don't know if this is a real buyer. Still won't know 100% that they're a real buyer, and even if they are a real buyer, that they won't chicken out or decide that what they can afford is not going to meet their needs at that point in time. But if you can't get them to an in-person meeting, they're not your client yet. I don't care what they're saying to you. Okay? You need an in-person. And so even if nothing's meeting their criteria, I'll invite them to go see open houses. I missed this one on Broker's Caravan. I'm really excited to see it. It doesn't meet your criteria, but I thought, it'd be great practice for us to see what going to an open house is like. I'd really like to get to know you better, because the better I know you, the better job I'm going to be able to do finding you the right place. It's all about your preferences. And, we don't always use the same terminology. The better I know you, the more in person we see together, the faster, the easier my job's going to be, the better job I'm going to do. Right? So I want to score that in person. What else? I also have a little follow-up piece for myself. I don't always hand this out because I spend a lot of time and energy on it, but I have something written for a not necessarily first-time home buyer, but someone who hasn't purchased in a while or has only purchased in other states or areas, because what happens in our geographic region is often very different than what they've experienced in the past. Or if they're a first-time home buyer, they don't know any better. So, right, I'm a technical agent, I'm a technical person. But most of the people that are attracted to me or referred to me come from technical referrals, or they are just that way. So I have this immense, really lengthy write-up that took me weeks and weeks to put together, written for the inexperienced or first-time buyer. It doesn't say that on there, but it's a buyer's complete guide. Just like I call my classes real estate, because I'm not like, get 100 listings in 30 days where I tell you jack shit, the same boring stuff that everyone's been telling you that you paid $1,000 for. Yeah, I'm not going to do that, right? I'm going to tell you how to do your job really well. What you choose to do with that information, that's going to differ for each one of you. And if you really own the information, get to know it, and figure out how to apply it in the way that's most natural for you, that's how you're going to get not only more business, but you're going to get business that you close. You're going to get loyal business, right? When you're not forcing a square peg into a round hole. Instead, you're finding which hole your peg fits into. Oh, that sounds kind of bad. When you find what works for you and you lean into that, that's where you're going to find business come to you the easiest, repeatedly come back to you. Okay. So, what was I talking about before this? Is anyone listening to me? Before I started making sexual innuendos inadvertently.
You lost everybody.
I know. Oh, yeah. So I have this super, super lengthy write-up explaining to a buyer everything. Not like the stupid timelines, which, by the way, in the KW command templates are wrong. In fact, the terminology is wrong. And why is it wrong? Because every state is different. But in our state, Northern and Southern California are really different in terminology and the parties involved, and a little bit in the process. Every city has separate transfer requirements. Beverly Hills and the city of Los Angeles, San Francisco, usually the larger, more expensive cities have some pretty extensive additional city regulations in place for a transfer and a sale, at least from the real estate and escrow agent's end. So I have a what to expect with pretty much everything covered. Obviously, there are still some deviations, but I explain just kind of like how I explained to you purchase contract and how everything works, and buyer purchase overview. I basically wrote that up for a buyer to look at. And so for the people that are technical, I might send this over, or I feel like the people that are maybe still skeptical of me after a telephone call. Like I said, I don't want much of this out in the world because this is a really proprietary piece of information. It's kind of like my last resort is, oh, let me show you why I am the agent for you. Let me show you why I'm a better agent. Let me show you my knowledge level in explicit written detail. let me set you up for success and what to expect so that you're a very educated buyer, right? I'm not sending this to the the artist clients that were referred to me by one of my technical clients. They have no interest in this. So you have to know your audience and you have to have different tactics for different types of clients. Yes.
How many houses you're showing to the client until you want them to make a decision or something?
As many as it takes because it's their decision, not mine. There are some people I've shown one house to or called me and told me to write an offer. And there are other people that I spent 6 months to 2 years with. Okay. Are they gonna be the same? No. I find that my super high end and my first time buyers are the easiest. It's in between that are usually the easier ones, but not always. And sometimes you have to find the motivation, right? And this is part of buyer process also, is I had a client who wanted something at the 2 million range that cost at least the 2.5 range. And from everything I could tell, and I looked for them for months and months, everything that I could tell, and they were already pre-qualified, they should have no issue affording this house. The type of income I knew that they made, they were a former employer of mine's clients who decided they referred me to him. Yay! That's one of my first big sales. I really needed that money. I was like, oh, bank account. And I couldn't figure out why they were so stuck on this number. We had had the conversation, what you're looking for is in this price range. They trusted me, we knew one another. I didn't have to be as ginger as I would with an unknown buyer. Turns out they were working with the wife's college roommate who worked at a bank and had access, a small bank who had access to 4 programs. I put them in touch with my mortgage broker. We got them the house that they wanted a month later at 2.7 with, I think, an interest only loan. Yeah, it's because they didn't have the loan option. So if something's checking all of the boxes, if something doesn't add up to you without asking always directly, you're going to have to find a way, kind of feeling around in the dark for your way where you need to get gently. You need to find out what is driving them and why. Don't try, Errol. I see you.
No, I'm listening.
You have to gently find out what is holding them back or what the real problem is. Some of my clients, it's just fear. So instead of ignoring it or being pushy, which I don't think helps anyone, I invite them to share their fear with me and I share my story with them. Is that even though I do this professionally, when I purchased my first property, I went home and I cried every night for 2 weeks straight because I was terrified. It's okay. It's scary. It's a big thing, right? But it worked for me. Why? Or so much less scary for you. There are 2 of you. You have one another to help, right? Where there was just me. Or, that wasn't the best. This is truthful. That wasn't the best decision for me. Buying to the extent of my means. I was young. I was not diversified at all. Are you diversified? Let's talk about worst case for you. What if one of you lost your jobs? Would you still be able to do this? Do you have other forms of income? Do you have other assets, right? So it's dispelling, let's talk about worst case scenario. So it's getting to source of fear, inviting that to be acknowledged and they're human beings, acknowledge their human feelings and help them to look at them in a rational way. Sometimes it is not in their best interest to buy that. Most of the cancellations I've had have been with my buyers and I'm like, don't buy that house. You cannot fix it. You don't want to. I'm afraid of what you're going to find when you try to. I literally have referral business from those buyers who are like, yeah, every single friend was telling me I need to use their agent. But when she told me that you told her not to buy this house you were in escrow on, that perked my ears up and I was like, okay, I'll talk to this girl. If you are honest with your clients, even if they don't buy them, even if they don't buy that house, they will likely buy with you when they do buy. It is about the relationship. It is not about the commission. Okay. All right. Let's talk about.
I've got a quick question. When you're talking to them about the worst case scenario, are you having that conversation in the initial consult as well? Where you get them?
No.
Okay. Stay away from that in the initial.
Yeah, I don't have. I don't have the relationship with them to invite them to be vulnerable with me like that yet. And I'm really only going here when I see the perfect house come up once, maybe even twice. And I need to get some motivation of what is holding you back. This is everything you said you wanted. You said, like, this will happen to you more often than not with your first time buyers. Let's make an offer. Oh, never mind. Or let's make it significantly lower. Okay, but there's 8 offers here, all at or above asking. You want to make it under asking? Just do it anyway. Sometimes you need to write an offer and see that you're right so that they can learn to trust you. Sometimes they need to miss out and lose in order to be confident enough, to be bold enough to win next time. It is an exercise. Think about it as an exercise in writing offers for yourselves. Yes.
There is a tactic that you have to request the bank statement from your cash buyer if you haven't seen it yet, and you're showing the houses. And
It's not a tactic. Some sellers require proof of funds or pre-qualification letter before they'll allow their pay to be shown.
if I just want to find out on my own, is it real buyer or are they like they're fishing with my time and sources?
Yeah, see, here's my take on that is if people have the money, they will show you. I think high context cultures may be slightly different than that. Okay, well then can I have a letter from your banking institution saying you have enough on deposit to purchase a home of this price? And I'm fine with either one. And I'm really direct because this is my business and it's a business decision for me, just as it is for you. And it's important who you hire to represent you in your purchase. I want to ensure that I am spending time with people who are capable of making a purchase. I only have so many hours and so much energy in the day. And I'm really direct about it. I don't sugarcoat it. I'm polite about it. But anyone who's not willing to show that to me after I have that discussion with them, I'm suspect that they have the funds to make that purchase.
Is it like specific some price range when you're?
No, and this is a little bit off topic. We'll have to talk about this after class, and I don't know if I have time after class or not. But I gave you what I'd asked for. I don't necessarily ask for proof of funds at my buyer consultation because, again, just like the conversation, being vulnerable, I don't invite that until I have a relationship with them. If you want to be a hard ass and be like, show me proof of funds or I'm not going to work with you, it's like pushing that VRE. You don't have a relationship with anyone yet. Why would they enter into anything contractual with you or send anything yet? You do a lot of free work as a real estate agent. That is your job, first to romance the client. I'm not going to do anything for you as a buyer. I'm not going to send anything. It is your job as the agent to win the buyer first. You're going to do free work. You're going to show them why you're better. You're going to show them why they should work for you. And if you're not willing to do that, you're not going to have a buyer. Yeah, if you go in for the kill and ask them for these things, they're going to have nothing to do with you. Show them why they should give you anything, including their time. All right. Let's talk about now the mechanics. What goes into a buyer consultation? Basic stuff. All your presentations, these things should go into.
Your information,
Yeah, what kind of information?
phone number, email, bio.
Professionally written bio, guys. I don't want to see any self-written bios. They're written in third person, and if you're comfortable writing about yourself in third person, I'm a little worried about you. Also, if you're a newer agent with less experience, it's going to be weird trying to pull your past experience and use that information to convey into real estate industry experience. Okay. Also, someone who writes professionally for something like this, they're going to have a better ear for what a potential buyer and seller might want to hear. Now, they're not going to know all the terminology stuff, so you're still going to have to run this by real estate agents, right? Experienced agents. Let me tell you the most common errors I see in bios. Too buyer-centric, too seller-centric, too soft, or too hard. What do I mean by soft or hard? Well, if I'm all about making the experience lovely and beautiful, then I'm not a strong negotiator. If I am going to win and going for the kill and negotiate the best terms, well then, I might not be able to tactfully resolve issues. I might actually create problems. So I want to appeal to the broadest audience of all types of clients at all times. And so I shouldn't be too soft, I shouldn't be too hard, and I should not be more buyer or seller centered. I meant to tell you earlier, do you care if you show property for 2 months or 2 years? It depends, maybe not. When I sell a $20 million home, I don't care that it's 2 years with those clients. I'm probably looking at less homes because there are probably fewer that meet their criteria, right? I might get kind of tired of people looking for a $550,000 condo in the valley where I have to drive out to the valley for 2 years. That might irritate me, but you know, those high-end buyers, they oftentimes take quite some time. So time is all relative. And when I didn't have enough business or I wasn't super busy, I'm crazy because now I have 2 full-time jobs. But when I wasn't super busy, what else did I have better to do? I could have had fun. That was probably a little more important than I gave it credit. But I needed money. I needed security. I needed to get to this place in my career where I don't have to look for clients anymore. How do I do that unless I have clients? I can't. So until I had, until looking for a client excessively interfered with business development activities and active business, well, look as long as you want. What, I'm never going to sell you anything unless I take property with you. Yeah.
I would imagine, right, at some point you get to a place where if you're searching for property forever for a client, you get to a place where you determine whether they're committed to buying a property or if they're just interested in looking around forever. Right?
Yeah.
You get to that point where you know the difference, and then you can draw the line and like, look,
Yeah, look, I always encourage honest conversation. Mr. and Mrs. whatever. We have been working together for 9 months. And we have been to at least 100 open houses and private showings. This was your search criteria. I feel like we found it a couple of times where I don't feel like we found it. I'm not sure that we will. And we've discussed needing to increase your budget or open your search parameters a little bit. But that hasn't been the case. So I really, again, I adore you. I'd really like to help you, but this is a business for me. I'm self-employed and I need to figure out what's not working because I can't invest my time working with you for so long and, giving you so much time if what you're looking for doesn't exist, or if there is something, that's holding you back that I'm unaware of. Can we talk about that a little bit? Can you tell me what's going on? If it's something we can resolve, fantastic. But if the truth is you're really just not ready, I need to know that because I need to, I need to spend my time in my business where I'm going to see return. I always encourage polite but honest discussion. Not right away. Again, you have to have a relationship before you can go in for the hard questions, right? Someone has to care about you. Otherwise, if you make them uncomfortable, what's the natural response? They pull away. They don't open up. Okay, so we talked about bio. What else? Headshot, professional headshot. I strongly encourage you to get one on a transparent background. It's people who take headshots outdoors or on backdrops. Well, your headshot's going to go on open house flyers and a bunch of stuff one day when you get really busy. If you have colors behind you, it's probably going to clash with something that you need it to be on at one point. So while I think having a background can be okay, I also strongly encourage making sure that you have a great headshot on a transparent background for purposes like a consultations. Okay. What else goes into buyer consult package? If you have them, probably reviews. I also have references in mind, and I know that's tough as a newer agent, but you can use clients you're currently working with as references. You can possibly, depending upon what you did before in your relationship with other clients, use past clients from references from old jobs. You can, if you're in mentorship program, leverage references from your mentor agents, past business, right? Because you should be presenting yourselves as business partners. I've actually gone on listing and presentations and buyer consults where the people I'm talking to know the people on my reference list, and Guess who gets that business for sure at that point? Yay, because you know anyone that I include in those is going to say lovely things about. In fact, I'm like, I pay them to say that, right? It's my joke. I don't. They're like, do you? I could use the money. What else should go into a buyer consultation package? Well, the list of all the questions that you need to ask. Because as much as this is a buyer consultation for the buyer, this is really an outline to keep you on point. Make sure you get all of the information that you need, that you cover all of your bases.
Do you need to make any sort of market analysis with you?
No, because I don't know what they're looking for yet, and I'm focusing on the personal relationship. My number one goal leaving there or finishing that phone call is to have their permission, a good enough idea, and their permission to set up an MLS search for them and send them some things. Because my secondary goal is I want an in-person meeting. If I'm meeting them in person, I want them to schedule that showing. That is my whole motivation behind it. But also getting them prepared. If they're not pre-qualified by a real, lending professional, I could be wasting their time. One of the things I'll often say is the last thing I want to do is show you a property that you fall in love with that you can't purchase. Or the last thing I want to do is have you settle on something that's not right or give up your search entirely because you weren't aware of how affordable, of how comfortable making a purchase at a number higher than you thought actually could be for you. It depends. A lot of it has to be, and I'll name things, like type of income, things like that. Not me. The IRS and I are not friends. And so I think I have to do a bank statement loan at this point. So yeah, not me. Yes.
Sorry, I do not follow you probably. What is this package? This is information you put on the website or you?
Buyer
send it-
consultation presentation, like a listing presentation. What do you think you do with the buyer when you meet them? You give them all. You talk, exactly.
I have to give something.
You don't have to. Were you here at the beginning of class? I said that this presentation often is more casual and takes place over the phone, but you need to have it in case they ask for it. But also, if you're not practicing this and you don't have a template with you, especially your first few years of real estate, you're gonna mess things up. You're gonna miss things, and you're not gonna be able to make it natural and focus on the personal relationship between you and this random person who you might be just speaking to for the first time over the phone. Yes? Yeah.
One professionally written bio, two professional headshot, background.
Well, if you have them, references and reviews. Work with your mentor on it. And see if you can't get references and reviews. I mean, I think it's crazy because I've offered, but no one in this mentorship program has actually asked me for any kind of reference or review.
So reference.
Don't ask me if I don't even know your name.
So question, reference is like house you sold or people
A
how.
reference is anyone that you think could give credible information that would be deemed like, cast you in a positive light.
So what's the difference
someone whose
between
business you're
review
trying
and
to-
reference?
Nothing. It's just a type of reference.
Okay,
I'm a pure reference.
so you just give them like the name of all those people, or you just tell them like those the house they sold?
Well, in a buyer consultation, they don't care about the homes you sold,
Yeah, or like those are.
They care about the buyers
and
and right?
Yeah,
But if you don't have those yet, I think they care about the skills. So you can present it however you want. So I have a review/reference list that includes buyers and sellers. I have some by city. Oftentimes
Just
I'll create them
names?
specific.
or
You're
contact?
not letting me finish.
Sorry.
Sometimes I'll create them specifically if I think it's relevant, but I'll say, past client. In my instance, all of my referrals are past client or references are past client because I have the number of years in the business to have that. But, you could say associate, You can say, professional peer. I mean, I do reference sheets, like I was trying to get an offer accepted for a buyer who doesn't even live in this country, sight unseen. We've worked with this buyer before and they closed. But most sellers and listing agents are not familiar with this. So I put together a reference list of the listing agents or buyer's agents, of listing agents who I've worked with that have closed deals with me with buyers sight unseen. A couple of them are really big agents too, right? So references, referrals can be listed however you want. You need to decide what you think is, what you believe that person whose heart you're trying to win, business you're trying to win, thinks is important, right? So if there's someone who's really technical, and you're using me as a reference, you want director of training to be on there, right? Versus peer. If you're working with someone who is, really name conscientious, you might want a reference from a recognizable name. You know what I mean? You're going to skew that information. It's all honest information, but you're going to present it in the way that you think is going to best reach that client. Just like I tell you, for a listing presentation, which will be tomorrow, your first few minutes in a seller's house are going to be the most important. They're going to tell you everything that's important to them and exactly how to speak to them in the first few minutes, because you're going to ask questions and you're going to let them tell you how to speak to them. So you can title the person, you cannot title the person, you can give a short bio, when I work with really high-end clients, I always make sure that whoever I'm meeting with knows I have explicit permission from the clients to share their contact information, right? I would do that with anyone I felt was conscientious of confidentiality, but particularly higher net worth people usually are. And I would put their job titles, and I love one of the things I really love for me, who likely are not going to be afforded this luxury early in your career, is that I'm repeat client, sold a total of 3 homes and purchased a total of 5 with me. To me, that is my selling point. Who the hell is going to work with me 8 times unless they think I'm exceptional? And these people are impressive people. So I'm putting their name, I'm putting their job title. Because when you see, these C-level people that are very successful at, very well-known public companies that have worked with me 8 times, I think that speaks a lot to any type of person I'm trying to impress, because I've got C-level people who think I'm amazing. But would I necessarily put that in for a first-time buyer? I don't want them to feel also like I'm not interested in their business. And what I mean by that, let me just illustrate that real quick. One of my really good friends from high school purchased a home for $700,000. And I saw on social media that she closed on a home, and I was really close with her and pretty close with her, but things have dropped off since she continues to have kids. And I think she has less and less time, and I have less and less time, right? And I told her congratulations, and she's like, oh, thank you so much. I wish we could have worked with you. And I'm thinking in my head, well, why the fuck couldn't you have? And she's like, but I know you only work with those really fancy Beverly Hills homes. And I was like, oh no. And so I made it a point to go out of my way to make sure that everybody knows that, and advertise exactly the same way, and make as visible on social media my $500,000 condo sales, as well as my, tens of millions of dollar sales. They do actually. And it's one of the things I really like is focus on that relationship. You're never going to go wrong. That $500,000 condo can potentially mean more income for you than that $5 million sale. Okay? Because that buyer might be moving up. They're going to know more buyers. You might have to do more transactions to get the same amount of money, but you never know, right? Some of the smallest deals I've ever done have led to some of the largest referrals and largest closings I've ever had. Yes. So I might not include fancy people, is what I'm saying, with people who might be intimidated by that. Yes.
So do I miss, where do we find this? Is it something we put together ourselves?
And not there yet.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay, so we're just talking about the things that we need to create to put in there. Now you can do this from wherever you want. I will screen share this in a second, but in KW Command, you'll find in the design section templates, many templates for both buyer and listing presentation. I do work from the buyer presentation. Why? Well, I don't see the need to recreate the wheel. Like I said, I throw away about 80% of it. Because though I love you guys and I love this office, I am not going anywhere to sell KW. My clients are buying me and what my team has to provide to them. So if it's and one of the things I love about KW, two things, more than two things, but the two things I love the most. Cap, yeah. Number two, as long as I follow the legal guidelines, get to market myself and not the brokerage. Yes, Keller Williams Beverly Hills has to be on everything. But have you ever looked at Compass's open house signs? Compass is this big. And your name is this big, right? And you're paying for those signs. And you're paying the brokerage part of your commission. That's not capped. So I really, in the spirit of all things KW, I take all the KW stuff out of my presentations. I'm not there to sell KW. I'm there to sell myself. And KW is happy with that because if I do a good job with that, KW is always going to get my 42K. Or is it, is that what it is now? 42?
45.
45. It is 42. National gets 3.
45 together.
AI cap, girl. You can do it too. You will. One deal can cap you.
Working.
There are years I don't. Or I do, but like 1 month before my cap is. Screen share here. I need to get going. I need to finish up here. Can everyone at home see KW command?
Yes.
Yes.
It is running really slow and I don't know why, but this little paintbrush here, this is designs. And if you click on create sign, it doesn't really matter which one you click, I don't think, but I always click print. Anything that you can print, you can have an electronic version of. And wait a significant amount of time. Isn't it interesting? Like zip forms takes forever to get into, like all of the things you're kind of excited to get started working on, you have to wait. All right, so over at the left-hand side, a buyer consultation probably is associated with the buyer, right? And then we've got buyer presentation. All right, so I believe that all of these have roughly the same information. So you can modify this yourself, or for me, I'm not very good at stuff like this. I use this design template, and then I added my branding for my team, all of my personal info for it. You know, myself with the team, I add all of the team agents into it because myself as team lead and having a second job, I'm not always going to be available to every client for every showing. So I want to start transferring credibility and getting that potential client familiarized with the names and faces of my team right away so that they transfer trust to them sooner, so that if I can't be there for that second showing, that's no longer an issue. You know, I used to want to do like the first 4 or 5 before I'd be okay. All right, so over here to the right-hand side pages, and then you can see all of them. All right. Remember, most buyer consults, they are not in person, not with a formal presentation. This is more to keep you on track. And I'm going to summarize all of this in like basically 1 page here. Do not use how buying a home works. I guarantee you it's wrong. I used to see one in here, it's like, contact the attorney. Do we have an attorney involved in our transactions? No.
Those are the states.
Those are other states, that's right. Choose a target closing date. Don't include words like target. That's a bad idea. And I'm gonna show you the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. Closing day, what to bring? Do we go in person on closing in the state of California? No, we do not. A lot of states do in-person closing. So just because stuff is in here, it's to give you an idea. So what is the concept behind this page? It's so that a buyer will have an idea of what the process is like. Doesn't mean that the content of what the process is accurate. So use the concept and make sure you work with someone who knows really well, your mentor most likely, so that you get that information correct. Use the concept. Here we go. Home wish list. What finishes do you like? Do you think that anyone in Los Angeles is going to buy a home because of what the countertop is made of? No, unless they have a generous budget to work with, they probably don't get much say in the matter, okay? So updated versus cosmetic fixer versus heavy fixer. These are probably terms we're going to use. If you go through and ask your clients these dumb ass questions, you're setting yourself and them up for failure, okay? There were some questions like, do you need any other structure such as a greenhouse or shed? We don't have that here, right? Because land is at such a premium. It's like, do we have a yard and a pool even? Okay, so I just want you to look at this information and understand that these are concepts. They are not relative or even accurate for our market, let alone our state necessarily. So I want you to go through here. I want you to trash a lot of this, and I want you to modify every section. If you start introducing something to your client like, oh, they can be picky about the floor or the countertop and they're buying below $5 million, you're never going to sell them a house. We don't sell dream houses here. When I see the terms dream house, I fucking laugh. I'm like, good luck with that. If you set your client up to believe they're going to have every single one of their box checks and their dream home, unless they have a massive budget, even if they do, they're making some concessions. It's not like we're working with tract housing where they can tell the developer what color or material they want in most instances here, right? Even if it's brand new construction, they're going to be things they don't like about it. That's normal. So don't set yourself up for failure by including stuff that's unreasonable for a buyer to think that they have control over, or that is reasonable to, have the expectation of. Does that make sense? So I'm going to stop share. If you guys are in the mentorship program, this is the time for you to create your buyer consultation. This will likely take you weeks to do. And until you have it put together, it is going to be very difficult for you to obtain a buyer's business. Why? Because you don't have the roadmap laid out to figure out how to find them, what it is they need, and how to get them to a place where they accept what it is they need to do and what it is they can actually have that meets their needs, right? And if you don't have this presentation, you can't practice it, which means at best, even if you threw together a checklist of questions, you're going through a checklist of questions and it sounds like it, right? Does that convey confidence? Does that make you seem like an experienced agent? No, it's not going to. So you need a buyer consultation presentation. You need your mentor to go look through it with you. You need to role play practice this with your mentor, with other agents, with your friends and family, particularly with that friend who will be mean to you and tell you the truth. Okay? Until that friend is satisfied, until several of those friends, if you have several of those friends, if you don't ask a gay man, he will do it for you. That's why I love the gays. If you don't, you're not going to do your best job of winning the buyer's business. Okay? So what's our homework, guys? If you're in mentorship, create. And then what? Do a mock buyer consult with your mentor. And then who are we doing those consultations with? Over and over and over again until you feel like you know it by heart. Anyone who will do it with you. Right? Great. Any questions, guys? No? All right, I'll see you guys tomorrow. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.
I know, I'm sorry.
Kristen,
What's that?
I said thank you.
Thank you, Kristen.